Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second you are scrolling through YouTube. You're looking for movie reviews, maybe something about the latest blockbuster, and then you stumble across a title that makes you physically stop scrolling. The title is Kristen Stewart Wants to Shove It Down Americans' Throat.
It is subtle, isn't it?
Oh, incredibly subtle. It's screaming at you in all caps, and your first instinct might be, okay, this is just clickbait.
Sure.
This is just standard internet rage bait. And, on the surface it looks like that, but we've got the transcript here. We've been poring over it. And what we found isn't just a rant about a celebrity. It is a document that frames a Hollywood actress as a soldier in a cosmic spiritual war.
That is exactly it. I mean, we aren't looking at a film critic saying, I didn't like her performance. We're looking at a commentator, this is from a channel called the Trent Report, who argues that Kristen Stewart's career choices, her recent comments, are a literal rebellion against the creator of the universe.
It sounds like hyperbole when I say it like that, but as we're going to see, it really isn't. The stakes in this text are incredibly high. So here is our mission for this deep dive. We are going to take this transcript and we are going to deconstruct it. We want to understand how the source builds this argument. How do you get from I want to make movies in Europe to eternal revolution against...
And just to set the ground rules, because this is a heavy topic, right? We are here as observers. We are analysts. We aren't here to endorse Kristen Stewart's worldview, and we certainly aren't here to endorse the Trent Report's worldview. We are looking at the text.
Yes, the text.
We are looking at the rhetoric, the logic, and the collision between these two very, very different ways of seeing reality.
Exactly. We are looking at the machinery of the argument. So let's start right at the hook. Commentator opens with that aggressive. Kristen Stewart said that she wants to make movies in Europe and then shove them down the throat of the American.
Let's just stay on that phrase for a minute. Shove it down the throat. It's a very specific choice of words. You hear it a lot in certain political circles.
Oh, all the time.
They're shoving this agenda down our throats.
It's visceral. It makes me think of force feeding. It's inherently violent.
It is violent. And it does two things immediately. First, it frames the subject, Kristen Stewart, as an aggressor. She isn't an artist offering a product you can choose to consume. She's someone forcing something upon you.
Right.
And second, and this is crucial, it frames the audience, the American people, as passive victims.
Right. It completely removes the concept of choice. In the real world, if I don't want to watch a Kristen Stewart, I just don't buy a ticket. I scroll past it on that.
Of course.
But this language implies that I don't have that. It implies that I am being violated by this content, whether I like it or not.
Exactly. It triggers a defensive response. Before the listener even knows what the content is, you are already bracing yourself for an attack. And the source immediately ties this feeling of a violation to a specific quote.
This is the inciting incident of the whole. Apparently, Stewart gave an interview to the Times UK. She's talking about the political climate in the United States, specifically under Donald Trump. And she says, quote, reality is breaking completely under Trump. But we should take a page out of his book and create the reality we want to live in. Now, pause there. If we are sitting in a screenwriting class or an art school or even a startup boardroom, what does that phrase mean? It means vision. It means telling a story. It means building a company or a community that reflects your values. It's aspirational, right? I don't like how the world is, so I'm going to make art that shows how it could be. It's the foundation of almost all creative.
Right. It's about social or artistic construction. But the Trent Report does not read it that way.
Right.
Not at all. The source reads it through a completely metaphysical.
The reaction in the transcript is immediate and intense. The commentator says that kind of undermines the whole idea of reality. The absolutely gall to think that that is possible. And they call it enormous egos and pride.
The gall. This is where we see the fundamental worldview clash. The source operates from a position of, objective. They believe that reality with a capital R is fixed. It is objective. It is defined by natural law or divine. Look at it.
So to them, reality isn't a sandbox you play. It's a building you live in. You didn't build it and you can't move the wall, maybe room, but the foundation.
Precisely. So when Stewart says, I want to create reality, the source doesn't hear, I want to tell a new story. They hear, I want to play God.
Yeah.
They hear hubris. They hear a human being claiming a power that belongs only to the creator.
That explains why the reaction is so angry. If someone says, I'm going to paint my house blue, you might not like the color, but you don't really care. If someone says, I'm going to reverse gravity, you look at them like they're insane or dangerous.
And the source leans heavily into that dangerous angle. They argue that because she wants to create this fake reality, she has to reject the real people living in the real world. The transcript says not only does she want to rewrite reality, but she views the American people with disdain, seeing them as only kind of like receptacles for the trash that she's going to make.
Receptacles for trash. That is such a dehumanizing image.
It is. It circles right back to the shove it down your throat metaphor. It paints the audience as a garbage bin. The source is telling the listener, she thinks you are a trash can. She thinks she can just dump her ideological waste into your mind.
It creates this incredible us versus them dynamic. On one side, you have the elite, wealthy, out-of-touch actress who thinks she can rewrite existence. On the other side, you have the regular American who is just trying to live their life and not be treated like a dumpster.
And the geography of it all reinforces this. Stewart mentions she wants to work in Europe because she, quote, can't work freely in the U.S. anymore.
Which the source just jumps on immediately. They point out she has homes in New York and LA. They frame her move to Europe not as an artistic choice, but as a strategic retreat.
Exactly.
Like she's setting up a base of operations overseas to launch these trash missiles back at the homeland.
It frames her as an outsider, a foreign adversary almost. But the source is very careful to argue that this isn't just a reaction to the 2024 or 2025 political climate. They want to prove that this contempt for reality as they see it is a long-standing character flaw.
Right, they're building a case file. This is section 2 of our breakdown, a history of degeneracy.
Degeneracy is such a loaded word, too. It implies a falling away from a standard, a corruption, a decay.
So they go back into the archives. Exhibit A, Saturday Night Live 2017. I remember this monologue. It was a big deal at the time. Stewart comes out. She's wearing that cool, edgy outfit, and she addresses the president directly.
She says, Donald, if you didn't like me, then you're probably not going to like me now because I'm hosting SNL. And I'm like, so gay, dude.
I'm like, so gay, dude. It was a huge pop culture moment. It was her very publicly and casually coming out on one of the biggest stages in the world.
For a lot of people, that was a moment of celebration, a moment of authenticity. It was seen as brave. But look at how the Trent Report frames it. They don't see it as authenticity. They see it as the origin story of the agenda.
The source argues that this moment, the assertion of her LGBTQ plus identity, is the core of the created reality she wants to push.
By linking the 2025 create reality quote to the 2017 so gay quote, the source is making a very specific linear argument. They are saying that the false reality she wants to build is one defined by identity politics. They are effectively saying she told you who she was back then. She told you she was outside the norm.
And again, this goes back to that idea of fixed reality. If you believe that traditional gender roles and heteronormativity are part of natural law, then claiming to be so gay isn't just a personal fact.
No.
It's a rebellion against the natural order.
Exactly. To the source, her identity is the rebellion. And then they move to Exhibit B to show what kind of art this rebellion produced, the 2018 Charlie's Angels.
I feel like that movie has become such a lightning rod in these discussions. Stewart described it to Variety as a woke version.
And that word woke, we have to talk about it.
It's the ultimate buzzword, isn't it? But in this transcript, it serves a very specific mechanical.
It does. In the lexicon of the Trent Report, woke is a synonym for trash. It's a synonym for low quality. The argument isn't this movie had pacing issues or the script was weak. The argument is this movie was woke, therefore it was trash. Full stop.
It short-circuits any actual artistic criticism. You don't have to analyze the film. You just have to identify the ideology. If the ideology is woke, the product is bad. Case closed.
And the source uses the commercial failure of that film as proof. They imply, see? The American people rejected this created reality back in 2018. They didn't want the trash then, and they don't want it now. It's presented as a market validation of their worldview.
So they've established the pattern, 27, the identity, 28, the product. And now we fast forward to the very recent past, November 2025, the Academy's Women.
This is where things get really heated in the source material. The source uses this speech to show just how unhinged, that's their word, Stewart has become.
Let's look at what Stewart actually said. She gives this keynote address, and she's clearly not there to make nice. Angry, she talks about the post-Me Too moment.
She acknowledges that there was this brief moment, a window, where it felt like things were changing, where women were getting opportunities. But then she says that window just slammed shut.
She describes the current state of Hollywood as bare-knuckle brawling.
That is a very specific image. Bare knuckle, it's raw, it's bloody, it's fighting without protection. She's describing an industry where she feels women are fighting for their very survival creatively.
She then lists very specific grief, talks about the wage gap, she talks about taxes on tampons, she talks about content being rejected because it's too dark, boo.
And she says that frank from women provoke disgust and rejection. She is articulating a systemic critique. She is saying the system is designed to silence, not about one bad producer or one failed film.
It's about the entire structure. And then she gives us this incredible image of her own rage. She says, I can eat this podium with a fork and effing knife. I'm so angry.
Eat the podium. I mean, it's guttural. It implies a hunger that can't be satisfied. It's a woman saying, my rage is so big, it is physical, it's consuming me.
Now, if I'm in that room, maybe I'm thinking, wow, that's powerful, or maybe that's a bit much. The Trent Report looks at this and sees...
They see madness. They describe it as a screed. They call it bizarre. They completely strip it of its context, a speech about frustration in a male-dominated industry, and present it as the ravings of a lunatic.
And then they bring in the comedian, Norm Macdonald, which is an interesting move.
Right. The commentator quotes the late Norm Macdonald saying, "It sounds like a bunch of commie gobbledygook."
Let's unpack commie gub, because that is a fascinating phrase to throw at a Hollywood actress.
It does a lot of heavy lifting rhetoric. First, commie. Stewart is complaining about wages. She's complaining about economic inequality, the wage gap, taxes. By labeling that commie, the source links her to a traditional anti-American enemy. It reframes her argument from a plea for fairness to an attack on capital.
It's an old playbook, but a very effective one. And then gobbledygook.
That's the dismissal. Gobbledygook means nonsense. It means gibberish. By using that word, the source tells the listener, you don't need to listen to her statistics. You don't need to worry about the wage gap data. It's just noise. It's the buzzing of a fly.
It's a way to avoid engaging with the actual argument. Stewart talks about statistical devastation. She says the number of films made by women is pitiful. She calls it a state of emergency. She is, in her own way, waving a spreadsheet around, trying to show proof.
And the source just laughs and says, look at this unhinged person speaking gibberish. Their counterargument is entirely based on a specific view of meritocracy. They imply if your movies were good, they would get made. Since they aren't getting made, they must be trashed. Stop blaming the system for your lack of talent.
It's the classic clash, isn't it? Stewart says the game is rigged. The Trent Report says you just suck at the game.
But, and here is where the deep dive really gets deeping. The source doesn't stop at you suck at the game. If they stopped there, this would just be a mean-spirited movie review. But they go further. They cross the line into theology.
Section 4. The Eternal Revolution. This is the part of the transcript that really, really blew my mind.
It's the pivot that changes everything. The commentator says that the woke agenda, which Stewart now represents in this narrative, is not just political. It is, and this is a direct quote, an eternal revolution against our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Eternal revolution. I mean, we are not talking about the next election cycle anymore. We are talking about what? The war in heaven. It's Miltonic in its scope.
Essentially, yes. This frames the conflict as cosmic. It's good versus evil, light versus dark, God versus Satan. The culture war is just a proxy for a spiritual war.
And this connects back to the create reality quote, doesn't it? That's the thread that ties it all together.
It connects directly.
Yeah.
And to understand how, we need to define natural law here because it is the engine driving this entire argument.
Okay, give us the natural law 101 from there.
So in this specific conservative Christian worldview, natural law is the idea that God created the universe with a specific objective moral structure, just like he created gravity or thermodynamics. It's a fundamental force of the universe.
So moral rules are as real and as unbreakable as physical.
Exactly. Men are designed for X, women are designed for Y, marriage is A, society is B. These aren't suggestions. They are the operating system of reality. They are immutable.
So if you try to change them,
you crash the system. When Kristen Stewart says, I want to create a reality, or when she pushes for woke stories that might blur gender lines or challenge traditional hierarchies, she isn't just being progressive, she is being rebellious. She is trying to hack the operating system that God wrote.
That is a massive accusation. It means she's not just an artist you disagree with. She is warring against the architect of the cosmos.
The source is explicit about. They say, and I'm quoting again, they want to create their own reality to live in, so they're going to rebel against the order that he created. And it will only lead to their downfall.
Downfall. That sounds ominous. It's not just your movie will flop, it's you will be destroyed.
It's prophetic language. The source is predicting that because this created reality is fake, because it fights against the truth of natural law, it cannot sustain itself. It will inevitably collapse. The trash will rot. The rebellion will fail.
And this leads to the fear factor. It's not just an intellectual exercise. The source warns the listener direct. They are still going to try to propagandize you to buy into their wicked, evil, disgusting narrative.
Look at those adjectives. Wicked, evil, disgusting.
They are biblical words. Wickedness isn't just bad behavior. It's sin. It's a moral state of...
And disgusting triggers a physical reaction. It invokes revulsion. The source is trying to trigger a moral gag reflex in the listener. They want you to look at Stewart's movies not just as boring or poorly made, but as contaminants.
Like spiritual poison.
Exactly. If you believe that a movie contains a wicked ideology that rebels against Jesus Christ, then watching it isn't just a waste of time, it's a danger to your soul.
Which brings us to the rhetorical climax of the entire video. The source asks a question directly to the audience, to you, the listener.
They ask, why would you be afraid of, why are you not afraid of God instead of man?
Fear of God versus fear of man.
This is a classic theological ultimatum. It's a very powerful rhetorical tool. Fear of man means worrying about what people think of you. It means worrying about being called a bigot or worrying about being canceled. It means caving to the woke mob.
And fear of God
That means prioritizing God's judgment above everything else. It means standing up for the natural order, even if it makes you unpopular, even if it costs you friends or your job.
So the source is backing the listener into a corner. They are saying, you have to choose. Do you want to be popular with the Hollywood elites like Kristen Stewart? Or do you want to be righteous in the eyes of...
There is no middle ground. You can't say, well, I disagree with her politics, but I think she's a talented actress. No. According to this text, she is an agent of the eternal revolution. You must oppose her. To do otherwise is to fear man more than God.
It effectively weaponizes the listener's faith against the celebrity, and by extension, against all of Hollywood.
And it isolates the listener. It tells them the world is crazy, the world is wicked, but you can see the truth. You need to hold the line. It's a very empowering message for someone who feels alienated by modern culture.
But then, and I love that we caught this in the transcript, right in the middle of this high-stakes heaven and hell sermon about the fate of reality, there is a commercial break.
Roll this up over at phantompulse.com.
It's so jarring. We're talking about the eternal soul, and then suddenly it's check out my link in the description and use my promo code.
It is a reminder of the medium we're dealing with. This is you. Even the prophets of the natural law have to feed the algorithm. They have to monetize the outrage. The eternal revolution is sponsored.
It's a blend of the sacred and the profane, isn't it? The apocalypse is coming, but first, buy this supplement.
It also grounds the fear. The fear is being used to drive engagement. If you are terrified that Hollywood is destroying reality, you're going to click the next video. You are going to subscribe. You are going to buy the merch to signal which side you are on in this cause. It's a business model built on metaphysics.
So we've broken down the text. We've looked at the history, the anger, the theology, and the commerce. What is the big takeaway here? What does this entire transcript tell us about the moment we are living?
I think it reveals the absolute breakdown of shared language. We have two sides, represented by Stewart and the Trent Report, who are using the same words but speaking completely different languages.
Stewart uses words like reality and freedom and justice.
Right. And for Stewart, reality is something we build together. It's subjective, it's messy, it's contested.
Yeah.
Freedom is freedom from oppression, freedom from the old rules that held women and minorities back.
And for the Trent Report,
reality is objective. It's God's design. It's singular and non-negotiable. And freedom is the freedom to obey that design. It is freedom from sin, freedom from the temptation to create your own false reality.
So when Stewart says, I want to be free to create reality, the Trent Report hears, I want to be sin.
Exactly. There are ships passing in the night. But they aren't just passing. They're firing cannons at each other, and they can't even agree on what the ocean is made.
And the source suggests that because of this fundamental gap, dialogue is impossible.
That is maybe the saddest part of the analysis. The source doesn't say, let's have a debate with Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
It says, fear God. It says, don't be afraid to speak the truth. It prescribes resistance and condemnation, not conversation.
It views the other side not as people with a different opinion, but as an existential threat, a spiritual contaminant.
And if you genuinely believe someone is trying to shove poison down your throat, you don't talk, you fight them, you push them away, you protect yourself and your family.
It really puts a new spin on movie night, doesn't it? You think you're just picking a film to watch, but according to this source, you are picking a side in a cosmic war.
It creates a world where there's no such thing as mindless entertainment. Everything is propaganda. Everything is charged with meaning, with spiritual significance.
Which is exhausting, frankly, to live with that level of vigilance.
It is. But for the person subscribing to the Trent Report, it's also exhilarating. It makes them the main character in a grand spiritual drama. They aren't just watching YouTube. They are defending the natural order from the forces of chaos.
So here is the provocative thought I want to leave you with today. We've seen how creating reality can be defined as art by one group and as sin by another. If that is the case, if our fundamental definitions of reality itself are this far apart, is there any common ground left?
That is the question. Can we share a movie theater if we can't even agree on the nature of the universe? Or are we just renting different screens in the same building, watching completely different movies?
Or has the screen itself become a battlefield that we can never really leave?
A heavy thought.
It is. Something to mull over the next time you see a controversial headline. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Stay curious.